Remember to swipe your Marcy card for savings. Shop with us for March Frozen Food Month at Massey Stores Supermarket.
This is the Caribbean Sound. Radio Caribbean International. Number 1. We present to you Youth Unplugged. Youth Unplugged is a program designed to provide a platform for all young people who have achieved or are achieving success socially, economically, academically, in business, in music, as an entrepreneur, and yes, in just simply defying the odds. To share the experience with all of St. Lucia and the world. Their stories are theirs to tell, and RCI has created this platform of influence so that their voices can be heard. Youth Unplugged, every Thursday, 3 p.m. on RCI, the station that cares about the youth.
Secure your tomorrow today with BOSL Global Investment Fund, the investment opportunity that empowers your financial future. It's a mutual fund that diversifies your investments across stocks, bonds, and other investment instruments, giving you the potential to make your money work smarter for you. With 3 unique investment options, it suits every investor's preferences, and you can start with just $200. Take control of your financial journey with the BOSL Global Investment Fund. Call us at 758-724-6838 or visit our website at boslglobalinvestmentfund.com to learn more. Terms and conditions apply. BOSL Global Investment Fund. Your money, your future, our expertise.
Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of Youth Unplugged, brought to you by the Bank of St. Lucia. That's all the bank that you need. Let me apologize by saying it's been 2 weeks since I've been on Youth Unplugged. I have been sick with a terrible throat infection, and it's getting a little better. The voice is not 100% there, but I will be back on Saturday as well for Jam Saturdays, and of course we're here for Youth Unplugged again today. Today we're joined with a young lady, good friend of mine, Miss Beverlyann Hipolyte, a young development professional for background in finance and a lot of other things. Good afternoon, Beverlyann. How are you?
Hi, Khalidd. I'm good. How are you?
Well, it's always good to hear from you. And of course, normally when I call you on WhatsApp or FaceTime. Let me see what's going on with you. But today we have you on Youth Unplugged. And it's interesting because this month is all about women. And I have a very strong young lady with me here today. So I think that the show is going to be fantastic. And I want St. Lucia to know a lot about you. So you need to give me all details. You know, I know the details already. You understand? But tell me a little bit about yourself.
First of all, let me just say it's an honor to be on this show with the greats. I have to.
You added the great. Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that. 100%.
I have to put in real quick. A little bit about me. Beverlyann Hipolyte, young lady from the community of Marsha.
Marchtown.
Yeah, and I like you said, an aspiring development professional. With a background in development finance. I previously worked at the St. Lucia Development Bank for a year and a half after leaving UWI, another plug there too, UWI alumni. And now I'm studying international development policy at the McCourt School of Public Policy at Georgetown University.
You see, that's a big thing you drop in there for me, eh? But I know you ain't finished yet, so give me something again.
Yeah, I mean, my experience here has been really, really, really interesting. It has been really, really eye-opening. My days at SJC, I didn't think that that's where I would end up.
Uh-huh.
As you know, I had other aspirations. We had other things that we had.
I happen to know a few of them because, when I first met you, you were doing biology, right? And then we threw down your plant in your balcony at home. You had a little plant with seeds. They were trying to grow seeds in Form 5. And
Right.
the entire SBA was destroyed, Guys, Beverlyann went to church with me as well. So, big things again, always in some sort of church drama. And, of course, a big part of, what's the racing club again? You would do your Rockets, right? Right, I mean, I was not an athlete, but I had pass and see you taking a little jog in the area. So, I mean, a lot of different things, but you settled on development policy. And that's interesting to me because there is a lot that could be said about development policy and a lot in St. Lucia that we need to speak on as well. But we ain't reached there yet. We're still talking about how you went there, right? So from SJC, probably the interest wasn't development policy. Talk to me about that. SJC to A level. What was going on in your mind at that point in time?
Right. I mean, SJC to A level, the interest was really low. I did a lot of the courses that I did at Sir Arthur Lewis post St. Joseph's Convent was structured around, history, Caribbean history specifically, sociology, and of course I did the Law 101 and 102 that was being offered at the time at Sir Arthur Lewis. After that, I had my eyes set on the UEKville law program. Additionally, I was interested in Trinidad's program as well, but it really didn't materialize the way I wanted to. So I kind of transitioned into banking and finance at Cavill, and that's where I ended up for the time. And
it seems you're a busy woman. You're getting a lot of texts.
Yeah. I'm trying to.
You'll just give me a little mute on the ringer. Okay, so of course, transitioning into banking and finance, again, it's a little crazy because I happen to know, you're big on law and you wanted to do an LLB, LLM, and LEC and become a lawyer. I know that was the path that I knew. And of course, a lot of the time we have young people who start off in one career path, or probably they pursue one degree and then eventually they go full circle. I don't think you went full circle going into development policy because you worked at a development bank. But I mean, at the same time, it's interesting. What inspired you to go into that direction? Is it a family member? Was it you went to a class and then you just felt so inspired by what you heard? Was it something like that? Talk to me.
No, my time at the St. Lucia Development Bank was really the foundation for me to go into development policy. I would say that really shaped my thought process on development, especially when in analyzing and looking at the profile and the demographic that we were serving at the bank. It really gives you an idea of how our people are doing financially. But what really sparked my interest was when we worked on a lot of the agricultural loans in the risk department. And, I really saw a lot of gaps, in not just in, our farmers and their approach to credit, but also in our knowledge as a bank and our knowledge as people trying to bridge that gap between, the people who really don't have access to the commercial market as much as some of us might have. And I was like, I really want to expand my understanding of how policy at the government level, impacts people who don't have that kind of access, but also some of the individual things that might restrict certain people from being able to, kind of have access to a lot more services, available in the financial market.
That's something we often talk about here on Youth Unplugged. Access to finance. Access to finance is very, sometimes we say it's a little difficult. I mean, you just come out of school, you're looking for a job, right? You probably get your first job and they tell you, boy, you can't get a loan. You understand? You haven't worked for long enough. Probably you don't have enough shares in the credit union. You need to build that up. And I think financial literacy is very important. It's something that we need to speak about to the young people of St. Lucia because they don't know. A lot of young people sometimes, again, we turn to entrepreneurship because we probably can't find a job, up our avenue. And when you go into entrepreneurship, you still need to have some sort of access to finance. So places like the development bank, again, I find they're doing a wonderful job. I mean, more can be done. I saw the other day that they had a little bit of interest in sustainable development. I don't say a little bit of interest, but interest in sustainable development. I think giving some loans for solar panels and different little, so when you see these things, it tells you that probably the system is moving along with the times, because that's what we're urging people to do now. Again, we're trying to keep our sustainable development goals, etc. And I think that's something you would have some sort of understanding of, considering that you're a student in development policy. You understand?
Yeah.
But it's not just development policy, because you're speaking specifically to GBV, or gender-based violence, right? Is that the focus of your program?
So the program, yeah, I would say that the program allows you, it gives you the flexibility to decide exactly where you want to narrow your focus. It's not centered specifically around GBV. It's more around poverty and poverty alleviation.
Okay.
But everything is connected. Everything has an arm in everything else. I mean, when we talk about women's financial independence, their economic empowerment, all of that is linked to their health, their education.
100%.
So I wouldn't say it's a narrow focus on just that, but it gives you the ability to now look out and see what exactly can I branch off into that is also, you know, a main contributing factor to some of the issues that women face. And poverty, for one, is has a very high correlation with gender-based violence. And we can talk about financial independence and women's education and so many other things that have very high correlations with women being exposed to violence, being at risk of harassment, being at risk of assault, you know. So that's how I could really like describe, what our program really is about.
Well, I'll tell you something. I did some research before we came onto the show, and I saw that the United Nations conducted a study some years ago. The data is relevant. I mean, well, some will call it relevant. It's about 10 years ago, 2015. And per 100,000 people in St. Lucia, per 100,000 women, right? 493 women reported some sort of gender-based violence in the year 2015. And that information is from the Vulnerable Persons Unit. And of course, 1,281, was it? Girls reported some sort of gender-based violence. Now, of course, we're in the month of women, and we try to, now we condemn these things. We don't, we like I said, in the most colloquial way. Fire for that.
But so maybe.
No. We don't support that. We don't support that at all. Love them, tender touch them. That's what Vibes Cartel said. You understand? Love them. We don't subscribe to that at all. So the numbers for me, they are alarming. And that's 2015. I mean, again, if we try to relate everything to finance, we could say that probably in the years 2020 all the way to 2023, in the height of COVID, probably those numbers were higher. You understand? It went down? You said
I would say COVID definitely was a factor that contributed to an increase in violence that women
I would say increase in violence for sure. I mean, when people are in the house, I mean, you don't have any sort of money coming in, etc. You'd expect that sort of thing to increase. And it's really sad that that's our current state of affairs in St. Lucia.
Right. I would add to that to say that violence against women is not an isolated issue. It's not an individual issue. It's a community issue. It's a socioeconomic development issue. It's a public health issue. And if we really have to disaggregate some of the data, when you look at some of the losses to economies because women are exposed to violence, which results in low productivity, the powers that be would obviously want to kind of reverse these statistics and ensure that enough mechanisms are in place to protect women, to ensure that women are in the workplace also protected, to ensure that girls at school are very much protected,
Protected.
because there are long term and short term and medium term effects
Effects. Yep.
of exposure to violence.
I mean, and it's important. We need to identify some of those risk factors. I mean, some of these
Yeah.
social norms and attitudes that create situations like that, because it doesn't just start when you reach 18 years old, It
No.
starts somewhere. It starts in the home. Probably you saw it growing up and you decide, boy, you're doing the same thing. And the cycle repeats itself over and over and over. So what do you think can be done for us to alleviate some of these issues that we have, not just in St. Lucia, but overall? Because I mean, you're in development policy, that's a big word, You understand? So that means you should have some insight, you should have some information, or some sort of statistics that could probably help with some sort of development of policy for
Right.
for some of those issues.
Yeah, I mean, definitely there is a lot of work that has been done and continues to be done to protect women. I think the EU proves as a very substantial example of how laws and regulations are being put in place to protect women. Some of the key things I think that are important, and I've heard you say it. I've heard. I think when you had my dear friend Winnell on the show, she also emphasized the importance of evidence-based
Miss
policy
BOSL, yes, yes,
driven
yes, yes.
policy that's driven by data. But in order to have that data, the data needs to be one, readily accessible. No, there needs to be a cycle of collection of data. Is not every 10 or every 5 years.
It
We
is
need
important, right?
constantly collected, easily accessible, meaning creating databases, creating platforms where data in St. Lucia and in the region is available. We shouldn't only rely on the World Bank and a World Bank team to come in and collect data
Exactly.
for
Let,
us.
let me let me just read a little bit out of this extract for you. It says there is no available prevalence data on gender-based violence for St. Lucia. All available data is from administrative records such as reports to the police, the health system, the social protection system, and that's the data they used to
Right,
compile this study. So
right.
we don't have data. The data is not there. You understand?
Exactly.
We don't do surveys or people going around saying, but let me find out how many people have gone through this over the last few
Exactly.
months. It's not a thing.
Exactly.
Probably that's something we could look at implementing at the tertiary level. I mean, you have students completing associate degrees and BAs, even at
And
Monroe College, etc.
that's a perfect time to have these research initiatives being kickstarted, and having these young people who now
Yes.
want to find themselves at a higher level doing that kind of groundwork constantly. Constantly, investment needs to be made in data collection, in in like policy implementation. That cannot You cannot implement an economic policy without the gender lens, and the gender lens is very complex. It can be broken down and disaggregated on so many levels. But just not to skip over the point of, there are gaps and there are opportunities for us to have a lot of our young people who are very interested, who see the importance of data now, in the stuff that they do, to get them involved in finding out what's happening in our communities. I don't know if I was able to come across this video, or rather this recording online, and I haven't heard much about it yet, but it was the case of this young child seeing the importance of recording the conversation that she had with her uncle. And we all know what that conversation was
Right.
about, you know? So we need people
and
on
that
the
and that was this year, right? And
also
again,
people.
when you see these things, you need to say, but okay, this is not isolated. This is one case, right? This
Exactly.
is one case, but how many of those do we have a year? How many of those
Yeah.
do we have in a given month?
I mean, but
It's
I think we've normalized this thing about it being just something that can be brushed off. But when I think back on some of the experiences that me as a young girl at St. Joseph's Convent, a minor walking on the street, to go to my mother's workplace.
And
Or to go to
somebody calling you, psst, hey
What's
girl,
that?
right?
What's
I mean,
that? I'm 14, 15 years old. That should not be a normal thing. And we should by now understand the importance of these norms and attitudes and social behaviors need to be eradicated in our communities. We need to as much educate men and boys as much as we do women on the importance of respecting young girls, respecting young women, and the framework to support that needs to be there needs to be more investment in it, because the fact that men don't understand the consequences of of putting a woman in danger, or putting a young girl in danger, or violating the rights of a young girl and a woman, it that needs to be addressed to for us to start seeing changes in the norms and attitudes of our people. We need to go to the root and understand the microeconomic issues that result in that kind of behavior.
and I agree with you 100%. I mean, we know that few cases are prosecuted. This is something that's in our in this extract here from the United Nations. I mean, and even fewer perpetrators are convicted. I mean, sometimes the cases are pursued, and then at the last minute, some sort of empathy, sympathy to some of the family members or individuals, and
Yeah.
then they don't end up pressing the charge. The person never gets convicted, and probably this thing happens again. I mean, we have again police as the first responders for most of our cases. Are the police properly equipped?
Yeah.
Is the vulnerable persons unit being properly financed by the Ministry of Justice? All of these questions, I mean, we ought to pose sometimes to government. Is enough being done? And I could say that, you know, the vulnerable persons unit has been getting a bit. I worked in the forensic lab some years ago, and I remember some donations being given, of course, by government and the Taiwanese, and of course some training was being done, etc. But how often are those things being conducted? How much is really being done to help get these problems eradicated? Of course, the family court. We have a huge problem with courts in St. Lucia. I mean,
The
not
justice
court,
system.
not courts on the street there on Street Road. The courts, the actual courts. It's a joke, but I'm serious. We have a huge problem with that as well. And how many of these cases get thrown out for one reason or another? I mean, we have a lot of work to do with respect to that.
Yeah, I mean, Khalid, when you talk about the law, you know, the World Bank just released a report, the Women Business and Law Report of 2024. And mind you, St. Lucia is doing okay. And this is the data that they can collect, right? When it comes to the legal framework that needs to support women, St. Lucia scores very high.
And I saw that as well.
You know?
I saw that.
Yeah.
You know, we often hear about how we have the most women in managerial positions. We have a lot of women in leadership positions in St. Lucia. And, you know, that's something that we boast about,
That's good.
but it's great. It's great. But at the same time, we also have a lot of women who are not in those positions.
And we also fall very short in terms of safety for women, and into the two things that St. Lucia is really having an issue, and not just St. Lucia but globally, is the safety that women the safety mechanisms that women have the exposure to, and childcare. We are obviously, we know that women are responsible for children in the home, mainly responsible. But these women didn't have these children on their own, and so they
Right.
need the support from the men that that they
Yeah.
children with.
I agree with you 100%. Again, we have a huge workforce in the tourism industry, right?
Right.
And majority of those people are women. You go to any hotel today or tomorrow, majority of housekeeping staff,
Women.
You go into the kitchens and there's women. You
Women.
go to the restaurants in the hotels, women. You know, they're the ones serving. You know, so a lot of the time they can't be home.
No.
You understand? And again, we have people working within the tourism sector. right? These women can have children. Again, I want to say shout out to Sandals. I mean, they just opened a daycare for some of the staff, which is huge. I mean, I see some strides by government as well. Again, with women, again, trying to give women support during pregnancy with things like free what's the word, ultrasounds, etc. We see
Right.
some things happening underneath UHC and the initial healthcare system. So I mean, little strides here and there, but of course we always want more. We're
Yeah.
the ones that eventually going to become the leaders of tomorrow and be in those leadership positions. So as much as we advocate for these things now, I think that the policy that is currently being developed should have some of those indicators present and work towards some of those issues.
Right. 100% agree. I think St. Lucia can do more in terms of making information available on the indicators that are needed to put these reports together. A lot of the time we hear that, the data is not, it's not, we don't have it. I recently went to a presentation on an index that's being conducted here at Georgetown, and it's called the Women in Peace and Security Index. And when I asked about, the differences between the Latin American region and the Caribbean, because they like to group us together. But do you
Yes.
see any differences between these two regions? Because yes, they're close geographically, but some of the issues that we experience in some places are not the same.
Same,
The
yes.
answer was we don't have the data. There was no data to collect. And
You'd probably have to go and live in Latin America for a few years for you to see is the society the same, is everything the same, question mark.
Yeah.
We don't know. And again, who can
Not
we,
enough.
we
That's not
yeah,
enough. That's not enough. With the evolution of AI and digital technology and all of these things now, I don't think there's an excuse now to say that we don't have the capacity to collect data anymore. We cannot do it. We don't have the funds. There's more than enough resources to ensure that we have the data that
we need.
is driving our
That's
policy.
right. And I agree with that 100%. I have a question for you. I mean, you're about to finish up your degree. I think how many months you have left? 2 months?
Two, maybe it's
2
a
months?
little under. Yeah, two.
Yeah, that must be fantastic. I mean, whenever you're about to finish a degree, I think it's the most stressful period, right? So I honestly want to wish you the best in the next coming weeks. Apart from that, I have to pop the big question: are you coming back home?
Well, there's no place like home. Um,
You
I
speak very strongly, and of course we need those sort of voices here in St. Lucia. We don't want any brain draining. I always speak about that.
Yeah.
We love when you go out, get a different perspective.
back.
But come back. I mean, when we went to school, we went to Kville. You were a year ahead of me. I mean, we always spoke about coming back home because
Yeah.
after living in Barbados for 3 years, you learn so much. I mean, you learn to talk like a Bajan, but you learn so much, right? Because the society is not very different. I mean, but a lot of issues that they face, we don't face, and vice versa, right? And it really helps to grow the mind. So, would you say that your time in the US over the last 2 years has been great? Can you tell me that in terms of?
it's been an experience. I'll say that. I feel like there are a lot of things here that have assisted. A lot of my family, a lot of them live here, so I've had that support. I don't know. I had that privilege of going to Nigeria, and that
Oh
really,
yes,
really changed my life. I would say it definitely, I would encourage any young person, if you have the opportunity, you have the resources,
take
go
a trip.
beyond the Western Hemisphere and
Yes,
see how life is over there. And I think that builds so much perspective on, how people live. You get so immersed in culture, but you know I think there's a lot to be explored on this path of development that I believe is useful when I finally make that pathway back to my island. Because if we come
so
back,
so
we're not doing small things.
I'll take that. I'll stop you right there and I'll take that response. That response is telling me, you know what? Give you a few years, right? Give you a few years. You're coming back. You might come in the summer. We go see you. We'll give you a heal up. But that response is telling me you're applying for some for internships, you're applying for something. Basically tell me you go be there for. So I appreciate that, right? But before I gotta ask you, what's next for you?
What's next? We're looking at opportunities and jobs overseas. We're looking at opportunities to work on projects that are meaningful, and really just taking time, really taking a break. I feel like I've spent most of my 20s in school.
In school.
Um, so it's now time to take a break and kind of enjoy family, enjoy, life a little bit, but also gaining as much experience as I can along this journey. And yeah, that's pretty much what's next for me.
Well, Bev, with that, I will say thank you so much. It's
Thank you,
3:30,
guys.
right? We want to say big
Can I
shout outs.
say hello to everybody who's listening at the
Yes,
SLBB family and friends? Love you all so much. Thank you for the support.
and thank you so much for joining us. You took some time out of your master's schedule, your Thursday afternoon to come here with me. So I wanna tell you how much I appreciate it and just say thank you so much for coming on. Of course, thanks to all our listeners. Of course, thanks to the BOSL. Without Banca St. Lucia, this is not possible. And again, we speak about finance all the time. Head over to Banca St. Lucia. I have a credit card and a debit card at Banca St. Lucia, and I tend to use it all the time. Right? So go to the Banca St. Lucia today. Ask them about the credit card. Yeah, come take it. Don't take it. Ask them about the debit card as well. Of course, investment opportunities with BOSL as well. Check that out. All right. Bev, once again, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks,
My name
Khalidd.
is Khalidd Vidal. I will see you guys again next week for another edition of Youth Unplugged. And of course, I'll be on air on Saturday morning in a different capacity, running some tunes with Marine. I'll see you guys again next week.
Secure your tomorrow today with BOSL Global Investment Fund, the investment opportunity that